Real power is not loud. It doesn't rush. It doesn't rely on motivation. Real power is what stays when excitement disappears. Most people believe success comes from intensity. They think if they feel inspired enough, push hard enough, or want something badly enough, results will follow. But intensity fades. Motivation fluctuates. Life interrupts. And when those things disappear, most people stop. Not because they are lazy, but because they built their effort on emotion instead of structure. Consistency is different. It is quiet. It is patient. It does not care how you feel today. Consistency is the ability to show up when nothing feels rewarding. It's the discipline to repeat small actions without applause, without validation, and without visible progress. This is where most people fall off. They expect change to feel exciting, but real change feels repetitive before it feels powerful. You've probably experienced this before. You started strong, you felt focused, you believed this time would be different. Then the days blended together. Results didn't show up fast enough. Doubt crept in, and slowly you began to question yourself. That moment, right there, is not failure. It's the test. It's the point where consistency is either trained or abandoned. Consistency is not a habit. It's an identity. It's who you become when no one is watching. When you stop relying on motivation, something shifts. You stop asking, "Do I feel like doing this today?" and start asking, "Is this who I am?" That single shift changes everything, because identity doesn't negotiate with emotions. Identity acts. This is why consistency is the real superpower. Not talent, not intelligence, not luck. Talent without consistency fades. Intelligence without consistency stalls. But consistency turns ordinary effort into unstoppable momentum. It compounds quietly, day after day, until results become unavoidable. The problem is, no one teaches you how to train it. You're told to try harder, stay positive, or wait for motivation to return. But consistency isn't about force. It's about design. It's about building a system that works even on bad days, low-energy days, and uncertain days. This audiobook is not here to hype you up. It's here to stabilize you, to ground you, to make you reliable to yourself again. Over the next hour, you will learn why most people break their own promises, how to remove emotion from daily action, and how to build consistency in a way that doesn't burn you out. You'll learn how progress actually works when no one is watching, and why small actions, repeated daily, reshape your confidence, your discipline, and your sense of control. You don't need a new personality or extreme discipline to begin. You need clarity, patience, and a willingness to repeat what works. When you stop chasing breakthroughs and commit to consistency, pressure fades, doubt loses its grip, and progress becomes something you trust even when it feels slow. This is how quiet confidence is built. Daily. This is not about changing your life overnight. It's about changing how you show up tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Because when consistency becomes who you are, winning stops being something you chase. It becomes something you expect. If this message speaks to you, share this video with a friend who needs it right now, someone who's trying to improve their life and needs this reminder to keep going today. Chapter 1. Consistency beats talent. Every time. Talent looks impressive. Consistency looks ordinary. Results only care about one of them. Most people grow up believing that talent is the deciding factor. If you are smart enough, gifted enough, or naturally good at something, success should follow. That belief feels comforting because it suggests winning is about who you are, not what you repeatedly do. But over time, this belief quietly destroys progress. It convinces people to wait for motivation instead of building discipline. Talent creates potential, but potential does not move on its own. Potential needs pressure, structure, and repetition to become something real. Without those elements, talent stays theoretical. It becomes an idea people talk about instead of a life they live. And the longer potential stays unused, the heavier it feels. Consistency is not exciting. It does not create instant rewards. It does not give you stories to brag about. Consistency works in silence, where no one is clapping and nothing feels dramatic. It asks you to repeat the same behavior when it feels boring, inconvenient, or unnecessary. This is the moment where most people stop. Not because the task is hard, but because it feels pointless before it feels powerful. Consistency demands patience long before it delivers confidence. This is why consistency beats talent every time. Talent often depends on conditions being right. When energy is high, feedback is positive, and progress is visible, talent performs well. But when those conditions disappear, talent hesitates. Consistency does not wait for the right conditions. It moves forward regardless. Think about how many talented people you have seen disappear. They started ahead, gained attention quickly, and were praised early. Then the learning curve flattened. Progress slowed. The work became repetitive instead of rewarding. That is where talent usually quits. Consistency stays. Consistency builds tolerance for discomfort. It builds tolerance for boredom. It builds tolerance for slow progress. These tolerances are not personality traits. They are trained through repetition. Each time you show up when you do not feel like it, you expand your capacity to endure. Over time, discomfort loses its authority. Boredom stops feeling threatening. Slow progress stops feeling like failure. This emotional stability is what talent alone can never provide. Another uncomfortable truth is that talent makes people emotionally fragile. So when talented people fail, they internalize it. They assume something is wrong with them. Consistent people interpret failure differently. They see it as feedback, not a verdict. That interpretation keeps them in motion. Consistency also simplifies your decisions. When action becomes routine, you stop negotiating with yourself. You do not ask whether you should act. You already decided who you are. This removes mental friction and conserves energy. Instead of debating, you execute. The world does not reward intensity. It rewards reliability. It rewards people who return. Employers trust people who deliver consistently, not those who peak occasionally. Relationships deepen with people who are emotionally stable, not emotionally impressive. Even self-respect follows the same rule. You trust yourself when your actions match your words over time. Consistency creates alignment, and alignment creates confidence. Most people underestimate how powerful accumulation really is. One disciplined day changes very little. One disciplined month changes direction. One disciplined year changes identity. Talent cannot compete with this timeline. It burns too fast and fades too quickly. Consistency is available to everyone. That is why it is rare. It removes excuses. You do not need special genetics to repeat an action. You do not need perfect circumstances to show up again. You need ownership. And ownership is uncomfortable because it removes the option to blame anything else. Consistency puts responsibility back where it belongs. When you rely on talent, you gamble. You hope conditions stay favorable. Yet you hope motivation returns. You hope the spark comes back. When you rely on consistency, you build. You plan for resistance. You expect boredom. You prepare for low-energy days. That preparation is strength. Consistency also reshapes identity at a deeper level. Every repeated action sends a message to your nervous system about who you are. Over time, that message becomes stable. You stop needing encouragement because your behavior has already convinced you. Confidence grows quietly from evidence, not emotion. This is why consistent people carry calm authority. They are not loud about their goals. They are not defensive about their progress. They have seen themselves show up too many times to doubt the process. Their belief is grounded, not imagined. Talent wants validation. Consistency creates certainty. Certainty eliminates hesitation. When hesitation disappears, momentum becomes natural. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You move because movement is part of your identity. This is how consistency turns effort into inevitability. Not through force, but through repetition. Consistency is earned, not discovered. It is trained, not wished for. It survives when motivation leaves. It becomes your anchor during chaos and your compass during uncertainty. When life becomes unpredictable, consistency gives you something stable to return to. It prevents small disruptions from turning into complete breakdowns. Instead of starting over repeatedly, you continue from where you are. This continuity is what allows growth to feel grounded rather than exhausting. Over time, consistency replaces anxiety with trust, because you know you will show up even when conditions are imperfect. This is the difference between restarting endlessly and building a life that actually moves forward, steadily, quietly, permanently. In the end, consistency is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters, again and again, long after the excitement is gone. Talent may open doors, but only consistency keeps them open. And the life you want does not require brilliance. It requires presence, repetition, and the discipline to return tomorrow. Chapter 2. Why most people can't stay. Consistent. Most people don't quit because the goal is too hard. They quit because consistency feels uncomfortable. They quit because they misunderstand what consistency actually demands. The biggest mistake people make is assuming consistency should feel motivating. They expect discipline to come with energy, excitement, or a sense of progress. When those feelings disappear, they assume something is wrong. In reality, nothing is wrong at all. That discomfort is the process working as intended. Consistency exposes you to repetition without reward. It forces you to act without applause. It removes the emotional highs people rely on to keep going. Human behavior is deeply tied to emotion. Most people are trained from a young age to act when they feel inspired and stop when they feel drained. This works for short bursts, but it collapses over time. Long-term progress cannot depend on temporary feelings, and yet most people never learn another way to operate. Another reason consistency breaks down is unrealistic expectations. People dramatically overestimate what they can achieve in a short period of time and underestimate what they can achieve over years. When results do not appear quickly, discouragement sets in. Discouragement then turns into self-doubt, and self-doubt becomes an excuse to quit. Most people expect consistency to feel productive. They expect visible movement. They expect proof early. But real consistency operates in a delayed system. The effort you put in today often pays off weeks, months, or even years later. This delay is where most people lose trust. They confuse nothing happening with nothing working, and that misunderstanding costs them everything. Consistency also threatens the ego. It removes drama. It removes the fantasy of being special. When you rely on consistency, you give up the idea that success will arrive through a breakthrough moment. There is no dramatic turning point. There is no single day where everything changes. There is only repetition, accumulation, and patience. For many people, this feels insulting to their sense of identity. Talent feels personal. Consistency feels mechanical, and that difference matters. Talent allows people to believe they are unique. Consistency forces people to admit that progress is earned the same way for everyone. This realization can feel uncomfortable, especially in a culture that celebrates individuality and shortcuts. But consistency does not care about self-image. It only responds to action. Fear also plays a role in inconsistency. When you commit to showing up daily, you remove the safety of excuses. If you fail after trying consistently, there is no one else to blame. Many people would rather quit early than face that level of responsibility. Quitting protects the ego, even though it destroys progress. Consistency requires patience. Patience feels slow. Slow feels like failure. Modern life has trained people to expect immediate feedback. Likes, messages, and quick wins have conditioned the brain to crave fast rewards. Consistency offers none of that in the beginning. It asks you to work now and trust later. For a nervous system addicted to stimulation, this feels unbearable. Another hidden reason people struggle is decision fatigue. Every day, and they renegotiate their commitment. Should I do it today? Should I rest? Should I wait until tomorrow? These constant decisions drain mental energy. Eventually, quitting feels easier than choosing again. Consistent people remove choice. They remove debate. They remove daily negotiation. By deciding in advance, they conserve energy. They do not rely on willpower at the moment. They rely on structure. This is why consistency is not about strength. It is about design. There is also a social cost to consistency. When you change your behavior, people notice. Your routines make others uncomfortable, especially those who are avoiding their own discipline. Resistance often comes disguised as concern, jokes, or subtle discouragement. Without awareness, this pressure pulls people back into old patterns. Consistency makes you different. Difference creates friction. Friction tests commitment. Most people are not prepared for that test. They want progress without isolation. They want growth without discomfort. But consistency demands both. It asks you to walk a path that few people choose, long before results make it obvious why. The final reason most people fail to stay consistent is simple. They tie consistency to mood, and moods are unstable. If you only act when you feel good, you will always stop when you feel tired, bored, or uncertain. Consistency requires separating action from emotion. This separation feels unnatural at first, but it is trainable. And once trained, it becomes a source of calm instead of pressure. Consistency does not ask for perfection. It asks for return, again and again. When you understand why consistency feels hard, it stops feeling personal. You realize you are not weak, you are untrained. And training changes everything. The rest of this audiobook will show you how to remove these obstacles one by one until showing up becomes normal and quitting no longer feels like an option. This chapter is not meant to criticize you. It is meant to explain to you. Understanding precedes change. Once you see these patterns clearly, you stop fighting yourself. You stop expecting consistency to feel easy or exciting. Instead, you prepare for resistance and move anyway. That preparation is what separates people who start from people who finish. Consistency is not a personality trait reserved for the disciplined. It is a skill learned through awareness, structure, and repetition. And when you finally stop asking it to feel good, it starts to work. Progress becomes quieter, confidence becomes steadier, and effort stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like a choice you already made. That is when consistency shifts from effort into identity and momentum finally becomes sustainable. Long-term, Chapter 3. Consistency is an identity, not a habit. Habits tell you what to do. Identity tells you who you are, and who you are always wins. Most people try to become consistent by collecting habits, morning routines, productivity systems, tracking apps, motivational tricks. These tools can help, but they don't solve the core problem, because habits collapse the moment identity is unclear. When you don't know who you are becoming, habits feel optional. Identity is deeper than behavior. It lives below motivation. It survives discomfort. When consistency is only a habit, it depends on reminders, discipline, and effort. When consistency becomes identity, it becomes a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice. When consistency becomes identity, it becomes a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice you already made. That is when true consistency starts to feel like a choice you already m it becomes automatic. You don't argue with it, you don't debate it. You act because acting aligns with who you believe yourself to be. This is why so many people struggle to stay consistent even when they know exactly what to do. Knowledge is not the issue. Strategy is not the issue. The issue is self-perception. People act in ways that confirm their identity, even when that identity is limiting. If you see yourself as someone who tries, you will quit when things get hard. If you see yourself as someone who shows up, you will return even after failure. Your brain is wired to protect identity. It will resist behaviors that conflict with how you see yourself and reinforce behaviors that confirm it. This is why change feels uncomfortable at first. You're not just changing actions, you're challenging an internal story. Most people say, "I'm trying to be consistent." Consistent people say nothing. They just show up. The shift from trying to being is subtle but powerful. Trying keeps the outcome uncertain. Being independent removes negotiation. When consistency becomes part of your identity, skipping feels wrong, not tempting. The discomfort flips. Quitting creates more friction than continuing. Identity is built through evidence. Evidence comes from repetition. Repetition comes from action. Every time you follow through, you cast a vote for a version of yourself. One action doesn't change much, but hundreds of small votes reshape your self-image. Eventually, your behavior stops feeling forced. It feels natural because it matches who you believe you are. This is also why inconsistency damages confidence. Every broken promise sends a message to your nervous system that you are unreliable. Over time, you stop trusting yourself, not because you failed once, but because the pattern repeated. Identity is shaped by patterns, not moments. Consistency repairs that trust, quietly, gradually. You don't need dramatic wins to rebuild belief in yourself. You need follow-through. Small commitments kept daily do more for confidence than big goals achieved occasionally. Confidence is not created by success. It is created by reliability. This is where most people misunderstand identity. They think identity comes first, then behavior follows. In reality, it works in both directions. Action shapes identity just as much as identity shapes action. This means you don't have to wait until you feel like a consistent person to act like one. You act first. Identity catches up later. That delay is normal. At the beginning, consistency feels mechanical, emotionless, almost fake. You may feel like you are pretending to be someone you're not. That feeling is a sign you are doing it right. Identity always lags behind behavior. It needs proof before it updates. The mistake people make is quitting during this gap. They assume the behavior isn't working because it doesn't feel natural yet. But naturalness is the reward of repetition, not the requirement. Consistent people are not more disciplined. They are more determined. They decided who they were. Once the decision is made, daily actions become simpler. You no longer ask, "Should I do this today?" You already answered that question when you chose your identity. This reduces mental fatigue and emotional resistance. Identity-based consistency also changes how you respond to failure. When habits fail, people feel discouraged. When identity is strong, failure becomes information. You don't collapse. You adjust and return. Because quitting would contradict who you are. A consistent person doesn't panic after a missed day. They don't spiral. They resume. This ability to return is what separates sustainable growth from constant restarting. Inconsistency creates a cycle of guilt and overcorrection. Identity creates continuity. You pick up where you left off without drama. There is also freedom in identity-based consistency. When you stop chasing motivation, you stop being emotionally reactive. You don't need to feel inspired to act. You don't need the perfect mood. You move because movement is aligned with your standards. Standards are stronger than goals. Goals expire. standards persist. Goals tell you what you want. Standards tell you how you live. When consistency is a standard, it doesn't end when the goal is reached or missed. It becomes part of how you operate. This is why identity-based consistency compounds so powerfully over time. You're not building habits for a season. You are building a way of being. This chapter is not asking you to label yourself or fake confidence. It is asking you to pay attention to what your actions are teaching your mind. If your behavior tells the story of someone unreliable, your mind will believe it. If your behavior tells the story of someone who shows up, your mind will adapt. Identity is not something you find. It is something you reinforce. Daily, consistency becomes easier when you stop asking it to feel good and start asking it to feel true. True to the person you are becoming. True to the promises you keep. True to the standards you live by. Over time, this alignment creates calm. You stop fighting yourself. You stop starting over. You stop needing external pressure to stay on track. Consistency stops being effort and starts being expressed. This is the shift that changes everything. From habit to identity. From force to alignment. Once consistency becomes who you are, not what you do, progress no longer depends on motivation. It depends on presence. And presence is something you can practice, return to, and trust. Every single day. Chapter 4. Train consistency. Through boring repetition, boredom is not the enemy. It is the training ground. It is where consistency is forged. Most people quit not because the work is hard, but because it stops being interesting. In the beginning, everything feels new. There is excitement, curiosity, and momentum. Then repetition sets in. The same actions, the same routine, the same effort, day after day. That is the moment where consistency is either trained or abandoned. Boring repetition is where progress actually lives. It just doesn't announce itself. The brain craves novelty. It releases dopamine when something feels new or exciting. Repetition offers none of that. Instead, it feels flat, predictable, and sometimes pointless. This creates an internal conflict. You know repetition is necessary, but your nervous system is asking for stimulation. Most people listen to their nervous system and stop. Consistent people do something different. They accept boredom. They stop negotiating with it. They understand that boredom is not a signal to quit. It is a signal that the work has entered the phase that matters. When repetition feels boring, it means the foundation is being laid. Muscles grow in repetition. Skills sharpen in repetition. Identity forms in repetition. Boring repetition removes illusion. It removes drama. It removes excuses. There is nowhere to hide in repetition. You can't rely on bursts of energy or emotional highs. You either show up or you don't. This honesty is uncomfortable, but it is also clarifying. It reveals who is committed and who is entertained. Most people associate growth with intensity. They believe progress should feel demanding, exhausting, and extreme. But intensity burns fast. Repetition endures. Intensity depends on mood. Repetition depends on standards. Consistency is not trained in your best moments. It is trained in your most ordinary ones. The days where nothing special happens are the days that shape you. When you still show up on those days, you teach your mind something important. You teach it that action is not dependent on feeling. Over time, this lesson becomes automatic. Boring repetition also strips away perfectionism. When you repeat something often enough, it doesn't need to be perfect to be effective. It just needs to be done. This lowers the barrier to action. You stop waiting for ideal conditions and start working with what you have. Perfectionism wants brilliance. Consistency wants presence. And this shift is critical. When presence becomes the goal, pressure decreases. You no longer expect every session to be productive or meaningful. You expect it to exist, and existence, repeated long enough, becomes progress. Repetition builds trust with yourself. Slowly, quietly. Each time you return, even when bored, you reinforce a simple truth. You can be relied on. That trust accumulates. It replaces self-doubt with self-respect. Not because you are exceptional, but because you are dependable. This is why boring repetition feels heavy at first. You are not just repeating an action. You are dismantling old patterns. Patterns of avoidance, patterns of distraction, patterns of quitting when things feel flat. Resistance is expected because the old system is being challenged. Most people misinterpret resistance. They think it means something is wrong. It means something is changing. Boring repetition also protects you from emotional volatility. When you rely on excitement, your effort rises and falls with your mood. When you rely on repetition, your effort becomes stable. Stability is what allows long-term growth. Repetition creates rhythm. Rhythm creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. This process is slow, and that is the point. Slow change sticks. Fast change fades. When repetition reshapes your behavior gradually, your nervous system adapts without panic. You don't feel like you are forcing yourself into a new life. You feel like you are settling into one. Another hidden benefit of boring repetition is focus. When the action is simple and familiar, your mind stops overthinking. You are no longer trying to optimize every detail, as you are executing a known process. This reduces cognitive load and increases consistency. Complexity kills consistency. Simplicity sustains it. Consistent people keep their actions boring on purpose. Same time, same place, same basic process. This removes friction and conserves energy. When the action requires less thought, it requires less resistance. Repetition also trains patience. In a world that rewards speed, patience feels unnatural. But patience is the skill that allows effort to compound. Without patience, repetition feels pointless. With patience, repetition feels inevitable. You stop asking, "Is this working yet?" You start asking, "Am I showing up?" That question shift is powerful. It moves your focus from outcome to process. And process is something you control. Outcomes are not. When control returns, anxiety fades. Boring repetition also humbles you. It reminds you that growth is not glamorous. It is not cinematic. It is built quietly, away from attention. This humility protects you from ego-driven decisions that sabotage consistency. Ego wants recognition. Consistency wants continuity. When you choose continuity over recognition, you gain something more valuable. You gain longevity. Longevity is what separates people who peak early from people who last. At first, repetition feels like sacrifice. Later, it feels like freedom. Once repetition becomes normal, effort decreases. You no longer feel like you are forcing yourself. You're simply following a rhythm you trust. This is when consistency becomes sustainable. Most people never reach this stage because they quit too early. They leave during the boredom, not realizing boredom is the final gate. If you can pass through it, the work becomes lighter, not heavier. This chapter is not asking you to enjoy repetition. It is asking you to respect it. You do not need to love the process. You need to stay with it. Boring repetition is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. And when you stop resisting it, consistency stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a practice. This is how ordinary actions turn into extraordinary results. Not through intensity, not through motivation, but through boring repetition, chosen daily, long after the excitement is gone. Chapter 5. Remove emotion from your daily actions. Emotions are powerful. They are not reliable. They should never be in charge. Most people live their lives reacting to how they feel. When they feel motivated, they act. When they feel tired, bored, or discouraged, they stop. This feels natural, but it quietly destroys consistency. Emotions change constantly, and when action depends on emotion, progress becomes unstable. Emotion is information. It is not instruction. Confusing the two is costly. Your feelings tell you how you are experiencing a moment, not what you should do with it. Feeling unmotivated does not mean the action is wrong. Feeling tired does not mean the commitment no longer matters. But most people treat emotions like commands, and those commands rarely lead anywhere good. Consistency requires emotional neutrality, not suppression. Detachment. Detachment does not mean ignoring how you feel. It means refusing to let feelings decide your behavior. You acknowledge the emotion, then act anyway. Over time, this creates emotional maturity instead of emotional chaos. Think about how unstable emotional decision-making really is. One good night of sleep and everything feels possible. One bad conversation and everything feels pointless. If your effort rises and falls with these swings, you will always be starting over. Consistent people do not feel better than you. They feel less in charge of their actions. They have learned that emotions are temporary, but standards are stable. When you live by standards, you do not wake up asking how you feel. You wake up knowing what you do. That clarity removes internal conflict. And emotion-based action feels freeing at first. Then it becomes exhausting. Every day becomes a debate. Should I go today? Should I rest? Should I wait until I feel better? These questions drain mental energy. Eventually, quitting feels like relief, not failure. This is not weakness. It is decision fatigue. Removing emotion simplifies everything. The decision is already made. You just execute. This is why routines matter. A routine does not care about your mood. It does not require inspiration. It only requires presence. When action becomes routine, resistance decreases. You stop needing to convince yourself. Emotional detachment also protects you from overreacting to setbacks. When emotions are in charge, a small failure feels catastrophic. One missed day becomes proof you are incapable. This emotional spiral turns minor disruptions into full stops. Neutral action prevents spirals. It creates continuity. It keeps you grounded. Consistent people miss days too. The difference is how they interpret it. They do not shame themselves or overcorrect. They simply return. Returning is easier when emotion is not driving the narrative. There is also freedom in emotional detachment. When you stop expecting work to feel good, pressure disappears. You are no longer disappointed when a session feels flat. You are no longer discouraged when progress feels slow. You expected neutrality, not excitement. Emotionless action builds resilience. Quietly, reliably. Resilience is not about pushing harder. It is about staying steady. Emotional steadiness allows effort to accumulate without burnout. You stop swinging between extremes and start moving at a sustainable pace. Another benefit of removing emotion is clarity. When emotions are loud, they distort perception. You overestimate problems and underestimate yourself. Neutral action cuts through that noise. You see the task as it is, not as it feels. Feelings exaggerate. Action clarifies. Repetition stabilizes. This is why so many people feel overwhelmed before they begin. The emotion of anticipation makes the task feel larger than it is. Once you start, the feeling changes. Starting without permission from emotion is often all that's required. Removing emotion also strengthens identity. Each time you act without waiting to feel ready, you reinforce the belief that you are dependable. Dependability builds self-trust. Self-trust reduces anxiety. You stop asking for permission. You stop negotiating. You start moving. This does not mean life becomes robotic or joyless. It means joy is no longer required for progress. Joy becomes a bonus, not a condition. This distinction is critical. Emotion belongs in reflection, not in execution. You can feel proud after acting. You can feel satisfaction after effort. But during action, emotion only complicates things. Consistent people understand when to feel and when to function. Most people fear emotional detachment because they think it will make life dull. In reality, it makes life calmer. The drama fades. The internal resistance quiets. You stop fighting yourself. Calm creates consistency. Consistency creates confidence. Confidence creates freedom. When emotion is no longer deciding your actions, you gain control over your time. Your days stop being dictated by mood swings. This stability compounds into progress that feels almost inevitable. Removing emotion is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming grounded. Grounded people move steadily forward regardless of weather. They do not need perfect conditions. They work with what exists. This adaptability is a hidden strength. This chapter is not asking you to stop feeling. It is asking you to stop obeying every feeling. You're allowed to feel tired and still act. You're allowed to feel unmotivated and still show up. You're allowed to feel uncertain and still continue. When you internalize this, consistency becomes lighter. Emotion passes. Action remains. Results follow. When daily action is no longer emotional, it becomes reliable. Reliability becomes momentum. Momentum becomes identity. And identity becomes the quiet power that carries you forward long after motivation fades. This is how consistency survives real life. Not by feeling better, but by needing feelings less. Chapter 6. Build a system that forces. Consistency. Willpower is unreliable. Motivation is temporary. Systems are permanent. Most people believe consistency is a test of inner strength. They think if they just tried harder, stayed disciplined, or pushed themselves more, everything would change. But willpower is a limited resource. It gets depleted by stress, decisions, emotions, and life itself. When consistency depends on willpower, it eventually collapses. Systems remove the need to be strong. They make action automatic. They carry you when energy is low. A system is not complicated. It is simply a structure that guides your behavior without requiring constant decision-making. It tells you when to act, what to do, and how to continue, even on bad days. When a system is in place, effort feels lighter because resistance is reduced. Consistent people do not rely on discipline. They rely on design. Designing your environment matters more than controlling your emotions. If your surroundings support the behavior, consistency becomes easier. If your surroundings fight it, consistency feels exhausting. Most people try to change themselves without changing their environment, and then wonder why they fail. Your environment always wins, not once, every time. Think about how often inconsistency starts with friction. You have to decide when to start. You have to prepare too many things. You have to think about what comes next. Each small obstacle drains energy. Eventually, skipping feels easier than starting. A good system removes friction. It simplifies action. It narrows choices. Consistent systems are boring by design. Same time, same place, same trigger, same basic action. This predictability may feel restrictive at first, but it creates freedom later. When behavior is predictable, resistance fades. The most powerful systems start small. Smaller than your ego wants. Small enough to never skip. People fail because they design systems for their best days instead of their worst ones. They plan for high energy, perfect focus, and ideal conditions. But consistency is tested on low energy days, stressful days, and distracted days. A system that only works when you feel good is not a system. It is a wish, designed for bad days, designed for boredom, Designed for low motivation, this might mean reducing the action to something almost laughably easy. 5 minutes, 1 page, 1 set, 1 small step. The goal is not intensity. The goal is continuity. Once continuity is protected, progress becomes inevitable. Systems also rely on triggers. A trigger is something that signals it is time to act. It could be a time of day, an existing habit, or a physical cue. Triggers remove the question of when. When disappears. Only action remains. No trigger means hesitation. Hesitation leads to avoidance. Avoidance kills consistency. Another key element of a strong system is non-negotiable rules. Non-negotiable does not mean extreme. It means clear. For example, I do something every day is non-negotiable. How much you do can vary. Whether you show up does not. Flexible intensity, rigid consistency. This principle protects you from all or nothing thinking. On good days, you do more. On bad days, you do the minimum, but you never disappear. This keeps identity intact and momentum alive. Systems also benefit from visibility. When your actions are visible, consistency increases. This could be a simple checklist, a calendar, or a physical marker. Visibility turns effort into proof. Proof reinforces identity. What gets tracked gets repeated. What gets ignored gets abandoned. Tracking should be simple. Overcomplicated tracking becomes another reason to quit. 1 mark, 1 check. 1 confirmation that you showed up. The purpose is not measurement, it is reinforcement. Another overlooked aspect of systems is recovery. Consistency does not mean constant strain. A good system includes structure for rest and reset. Without recovery, burnout becomes inevitable. Consistency survives when effort and recovery are both planned. Rest is not a failure. Unplanned rest is. When rest is intentional, it does not break identity. It supports it. You return refreshed instead of guilty. This keeps the system intact. Systems also protect you from emotional overreaction. When life disrupts your routine, you don't panic. You return to the system. You don't redesign your life. You resume the structure. This prevents small disruptions from turning into long breaks. Systems create stability. Stability creates trust. Trust creates momentum. Most people overestimate the power of motivation and underestimate the power of structure. But structure is what allows motivation to be optional. When the system runs, you don't need to feel inspired. You just follow the process. This is how consistency becomes sustainable. Not through effort, through alignment. Alignment between who you want to be and how your environment is designed. When your system supports your identity, consistency stops feeling forced. It feels normal. The goal of a system is not to control you. It is to protect you from yourself, from impulsive decisions, from emotional swings, from excuses that sound reasonable in the moment but are destructive over time. A system keeps you steady when you are most likely to drift. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. When the system is weak, effort collapses. When the system is strong, effort compounds. Over time, consistency stops feeling like something you work at and starts feeling like something that carries you forward. This chapter is not asking you to build a perfect system. It is asking you to build a durable one. A system that survives stress. A system that survives boredom. A system that survives imperfect days. When you have that, consistency no longer depends on how you feel. It depends on what you built, and what you build, if done correctly, will keep working long after motivation disappears. Chapter 7. Stay consistent when results are invisible. This is where most people quit, not at the beginning, but in the silence. The most dangerous phase of consistency is not when things are hard. It's when things feel unchanged. When you're doing the work, showing up daily, staying disciplined, and nothing seems to be happening. No feedback, no visible progress, no reward, just repetition and doubt. Invisible progress feels like wasted effort. It feels unfair. It feels personal. Your brain is wired to look for cause and effect. Do this, get that. When effort doesn't immediately lead to results, the brain starts questioning the value of the action. It doesn't see growth, so it assumes failure. But this assumption is wrong. Progress is often happening below the surface long before it becomes visible. Think about how roots grow, so they expand in darkness, before anything appears above ground. Most meaningful growth follows this pattern. Strength builds before it shows. Skill improves before it looks impressive. Discipline stabilizes before confidence appears. The early phase is quiet by necessity. And because it's quiet, most people leave. They leave right before it compounds. Invisible progress tests your patience more than your ability. It forces you to act without reassurance, without validation, without proof. This is where consistency becomes real. When the only reason you keep going is because you decided to. Consistency without results feels irrational. Until it works, then it feels obvious. The problem is, the mind does not trust what it cannot see. It wants evidence now. It wants confirmation that the effort is worth it. When confirmation doesn't arrive, a doubt fills the gap. Doubt sounds reasonable. It asks smart questions. Is this actually working? Should I change direction? Am I wasting time? Doubt doesn't sound like fear. It sounds like logic. That's why it's dangerous. Consistent people don't eliminate doubt. They learn how to move with it. They don't argue with every thought. They don't require certainty to continue. They rely on process, not perception. They ask a different question, not "Is this working?" but "Am I still showing up?" This shift matters. Results are delayed. Effort is immediate. When you track effort instead of outcome, you regain control. You stop reacting to silence and start trusting structure. Invisible progress also exposes your attachment to outcomes. When results are visible, it's easy to stay committed. When they disappear, so you find out what you were really working for: approval, validation, certainty, or growth itself. True consistency is self-referenced. It does not need applause, it needs alignment. This phase often feels lonely. Others may not notice your effort. They may question your choices. They may suggest you try something else. Without visible results, your consistency looks stubborn instead of disciplined. This social pressure amplifies doubt. Staying consistent in silence builds strength others can't see yet, but you will feel it. There is also a neurological shift happening during this phase. Your brain is building new pathways. Repetition strengthens neural connections. This process is slow and invisible, but it's real. Just like muscle fibers repair and grow after strain, mental and behavioral change happens after repeated stress. You don't feel neural rewiring. You benefit from it later. This is why early progress often feels underwhelming. You're changing systems, not symptoms. Systems take time. Symptoms change fast, then fade. Systems change slowly, then last. Most people chase visible change. Consistent people build invisible foundations. Another reason people quit here is comparison. They look around and see others advancing faster, gaining recognition, or getting results sooner. Comparison magnifies invisibility. It convinces you that your pace is wrong. But consistency has no universal timeline, only personal continuity. Your path is not delayed. It is unfolding at the speed required for stability. Fast results without internal readiness create fragile success. Slow progress with strong foundations creates resilience. Invisible progress also demands faith. Not blind faith, but earned trust. Trust in the process you chose. Trust in the system you built. Trust in the version of yourself that decided to commit. Trust grows when you keep promises without witnesses. That kind of trust is powerful. One of the most effective ways to survive this phase is to shorten your time horizon. Stop evaluating progress weekly. Stop asking big questions too often. Focus on today's action, then tomorrow's. Consistency thrives in narrow focus. Wide vision creates pressure. Narrow focus creates stability. Another key is to normalize invisibility. Expect it. Plan for it. Understand that silence is part of the process, not a signal to stop. When invisibility arrives, instead of panicking, you recognize it. This is the part everyone warned me about, and I'm still here. That internal dialogue matters. It reframes struggle as confirmation, not contradiction. You're not off track. You're exactly where consistency is tested. Eventually, something shifts. Not dramatically, not overnight, subtly. Tasks feel easier. Resistance weakens. You notice small improvements you didn't expect. That's the compound effect emerging. It always arrives quietly, because it was built quietly. By the time results become visible, the hardest work is already done. The consistency is no longer fragile, it's embedded. And at that point, stopping feels stranger than continuing. This is why consistency feels hardest before it feels natural, and weakest before it becomes unstoppable. This chapter is not meant to comfort you. It is meant to prepare you. Invisible progress is not a flaw in the system. It is the system protecting itself from weak commitment. If you can stay consistent here, you can stay consistent anywhere. When results are invisible, consistency becomes pure. No reward, no recognition, just choice. And that choice, repeated long enough, turns effort into inevitability. Chapter 8. Consistency compounds into quiet power. At first, consistency feels heavy. Later, it feels normal. Eventually, it feels powerful. Most people imagine power as something loud. Recognition, authority, visibility. But the most reliable power is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek attention. It shows up in how you move, how you decide, and how little effort it takes you to stay on track. Quiet power is the result of consistency over time, not intensity, not luck. Time. When you stay consistent long enough, something subtle changes. You stop forcing yourself. You stop questioning every action. You stop needing reassurance. What once felt difficult becomes automatic. What once required discipline becomes routine. This is the compound effect at work. Small action stacking, invisible effort accumulating. Compounding does not feel dramatic while it's happening. In fact, it often feels underwhelming. That's why most people miss it. They expect a breakthrough moment. What they get instead is a gradual shift in capability. Tasks that once drained you now require less energy. Decisions that once caused hesitation now feel obvious. That ease is power. Consistency compounds in 3 directions at once. Skill, confidence, identity. Skill improves because repetition removes inefficiency. You stop wasting energy on mistakes you've already made. You refine without trying. Confidence grows because you've seen yourself show up hundreds of times, and identity stabilizes because your behavior has proven who you are. This kind of confidence is different. It's not emotional, it's grounded. You don't feel the need to prove yourself. You don't rush. You don't react to pressure the same way. You trust your process because it has already carried you through uncertainty before. That trust is unshakable because it's based on experience, not optimism. Quiet power changes how others respond to you. They feel it before they understand it. People sense reliability. They sense calm. They sense when someone is not trying to impress, but simply operating from standards. This earns respect without effort, influence without noise, authority without aggression. Consistency also simplifies life. When your actions are predictable, your days feel lighter. You're no longer constantly recalibrating. You know what you do. You know when you do it. This clarity frees mental space. Less chaos, less friction, more focus. As consistency compounds, discipline fades into the background. You are no longer being disciplined. You're simply living according to your structure. This is when progress stops feeling like work and starts feeling like alignment. Alignment is powerful because it removes resistance. You are no longer fighting yourself. Another effect of long-term consistency is emotional stability. When your behavior is steady, your emotions stop swinging as wildly. You are less reactive, less impulsive, less shaken by temporary setbacks. You've built internal continuity. Continuity creates calm. Calm creates control. Control creates freedom. This freedom is not about doing whatever you want. It's about not being controlled by impulses, moods, or external pressure. You act intentionally. You respond instead of react. That is real power. Consistency also rewrites your relationship with time. You stop rushing outcomes. You stop panicking when progress feels slow. You understand that time is an ally when effort is steady. Patience becomes natural, not forced. You stop asking, how fast can this work? You start asking, how long can I sustain this? That question leads to smarter decisions. You choose actions you can repeat. You avoid extremes. You build for longevity. This is why consistent people last while others burn out. Quiet power shows up in moments of pressure. When others panic, you move steadily. When others quit, you continue. This contrast is not accidental. It's earned. You trained yourself to stay present through boredom, uncertainty, and invisibility. Pressure no longer overwhelms you because you faced it before in smaller forms. Consistency compounds into self-respect, and self-respect is armor. You trust your word. You believe your promises. You don't rely on motivation to carry you. This inner reliability makes external chaos less threatening. You know you can handle discomfort because you've practiced doing so daily. Eventually, consistency becomes self-sustaining. You no longer need reminders. You no longer need inspiration. Stopping feels unnatural. Quitting feels off. Not because you are forcing yourself, but because the behavior is now part of you. This is when consistency transforms from effort into expression. Expression of who you are. Expression of your standards. Expression of your values. At this stage, winning feels quieter. There is no dramatic celebration, no rush, just steady progress and internal alignment. You don't chase outcomes, you create conditions where outcomes follow. This is why consistency is the real superpower. It doesn't shout, it compounds. Most people will never see this phase because they leave too early. They underestimate the power of staying. They confuse silence with stagnation. But if you stayed, if you trained consistently daily, you are now operating from a different place. A place of calm authority, a place of quiet confidence, a place of control. This chapter is not the end of the journey. It is the confirmation of it. Consistency does not give you a new life overnight. It gives you a stable foundation that keeps working year after year. And once you have that foundation, progress stops feeling fragile. It feels inevitable. That is quiet power. Consistency does not change your life in one dramatic moment. It changes it quietly, day by day, decision by decision, long before anyone else notices. Over the course of this audiobook, you have seen the truth most people avoid. Success is not built on motivation, talent, or intensity. It is built on the ability to return, again, and again, and again. You learned that consistency beats talent because talent fades when effort becomes uncomfortable. You learned that most people fail not because they are incapable, but because they expect progress to feel exciting. You learned that consistency is not a habit you try to maintain, but an identity you train through repetition. And you learned that boredom, emotional neutrality, structure, and patience are not obstacles. They are the path. The power of consistency is not obvious at first. In fact, it often feels unrewarding, but over time it reshapes how you think, how you act, and how you see yourself. It turns effort into alignment. It turns discipline into routine, and it turns uncertainty into quiet confidence. This is the kind of power that lasts because it does not depend on feeling good. What matters now is not what you understood while listening. What matters is what you do next. Consistency does not require a complete life overhaul. It requires one decision you are willing to honor daily, one small action, one standard you refuse to negotiate with yourself. That is how momentum begins. Start where you are. Choose something simple enough that you cannot talk yourself out of it. Do it at the same time, in the same way, without drama, without expectation. Let the repetition do the work. Let the process shape you. You do not need to feel ready. You need to show up. There will be days when nothing seems to change. There will be moments when quitting feels logical. Remember this. Progress is often invisible before it becomes inevitable. If you stay, you win. If you leave, you restart. Consistency is not about perfection. It is about return. Consistency is not glamorous, and that is exactly why it works. It removes the pressure to be extraordinary and replaces it with the responsibility to be present. When you stop chasing breakthroughs and start respecting repetition, your relationship with yourself changes. You begin to trust your word. You stop relying on external motivation. You realize that stability is more powerful than speed. This mindset does not just improve productivity. It improves your self-respect, your emotional balance, and your ability to stay grounded when life becomes unpredictable. Over time, consistency becomes the structure that supports everything else you want to build, whether that is health, confidence, skill, or purpose. This is not a temporary mindset. It is a long-term way of operating that grows stronger the longer you commit to it, especially when no one is watching and nothing feels urgent. Stay steady. Stay consistent. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for choosing to listen instead of scrolling, to reflect instead of rushing, and to invest in the part of your life that actually compounds. If this audiobook helped you, take a moment to share it with someone you care about. Someone who is trying to improve their life and needs this reminder today. And I'll see you in the next one.